So predictions can be a funny thing, and here what we're going to watch is Margarita Simonyan giving her predictions for 2024. Now, the first thing that we need to understand is that she's trying to influence, not just predict. So she's trying to kind of skew the narrative rather than just predict what's going to happen objectively. So keep that in mind. Second thing, I'm going to cover some things for YouTube censors. So when you see that periodically, that's because there's some kind of destruction or missile fire or something along those lines in the picture. It'll only be brief and a couple of times. All right, so here we go. Special thanks to the Russian Media Monitor for providing this translation as always. We have a tradition before the new year. We visit an info sauna, figuratively speaking. We visit a woman who knows what she is talking about. It's us or them. The collective West decided to play the Russian roulette by raising the stakes to the max. Our president spoke about this as well, remember? Who needs the world if Russia isn't in it? This is not about a confrontation between Russia and Ukraine. This is a confrontation between Russia and the collective West. Well, she certainly is right about that, and that is the way that Russia is viewing this, and the collective West, that is Europe, the United States, etc., are not really recognizing, even yet, that Russia is at war with them. I can't imagine an unconditional capitulation of the entire collective West, much less of Russia, God forbid. After the US elections, Zelensky and his European sponsors are in a state of great depression. Again, that's her prediction, but that doesn't seem to be what the reality is, because Zelensky seems to be pretty optimistic about what Trump can do on behalf of Ukraine. And the Russians are the ones that are like trying to poke him in the eye saying, no, we're going to get these objectives or else, and you can't tell us what to do. To our enemies, she is Queen Margot, who for years has been slapping the faces of the heads of the Washington establishment with the truth. To all those who said, the whole world is against us, it's over, chew on this. This play on words and a three-finger gesture are being closely watched by Russia's enemies. Predictions of RT's editor-in-chief are right on target. They strike like high-precision weapons. The accuracy of her predictions are on par with Vanga and Zhoronyvsky. I'm not sure who those are. To be Simonyan is a profession. She is on the front lines of the info war. She isn't just working, she's fighting for the motherland, 24/7. Now, the new year's once again upon us, and the world is on the verge of global nuclear catastrophe. Once again, we meet with Margarita to find out what will happen next. Can we describe what's happening between the US and Russia as a Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0? Or is the situation worse than that? Of course it's worse. As I recall, no one died in the Cuban Missile Crisis. Well, okay, so that's fair. That's actually a good point. No one was dying by the thousands on either side, but now they are. After the meeting in Paris, Trump diplomatically stated that Zelensky is ready for a compromise. In other words, he is ready to capitulate. What may Trump do? He may pose the following ultimatum: that Russia will stop where it currently is. These territories are frozen. Or, in case of a better deal, Russia gets them. Ukraine will be under a certain dome of protection. I don't think he will want it in NATO. He may not even want NATO at all. Now, again, he may not, but we just don't know what's going to happen yet. And what he really wants is for NATO to pay its share rather than what he sees as free riding on the United States' military protection while they get to spend on other things. But we'll see how that all plays out. This means that if he wants to, Trump may destroy NATO from within. I'm not sure. I don't think that that's what he wants to do. He just doesn't want to pay all the bills. I mean, that's the way that I perceive that Trump thinks. Even in the run-up to a new year, it's hard to believe in miracles, especially that Trump can force Zelensky to capitulate. I would give a 5% certainty to the best-case scenario that Trump will do what he said he would. He won't fight with Russia. Okay, so let's stop there. So 5% certainty is pretty low that Trump will do what he said he would do. This is because Trump always speaks hyperbolically. He's never speaking for, yes, I'm going to do this thing on this date and you can hold me to that. That's never the way that he functions. Okay, he will focus on China. He won't try to strong-arm Russia with respect to China. They will have no interest in Ukraine whatsoever. They will stop all aid and support. They will say, if we stop the aid, the war will end tomorrow. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure that he's going to do that. I think things have changed pretty radically, and you can say this, but I don't think it's going to happen that way. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'll say I was wrong, but I just don't see it. He promised to end it by tomorrow. If I were president and I say this, it will end the war on one day. It will take 24 hours, says Trump. But again, Trump never speaks for precision. So just next time you hear Trump speak, recognize, is he trying to be hyperbolic, say this is the best, this is huge, he's the worst, she's the best, that sort of thing? Or is he trying to make clear delineations? If it's announced the aid will stop, it will end in 24 hours. But even if the aid were to stop, the Europeans are able to support the Ukrainians moving forward without the United States if necessary. And the Ukrainians have the technology, or they're building the military tech right now to be able to create their own weaponry. So it's not going to stop that way. But she says it's obvious. In the US, the punishment for working with RT is worse than it is for murder. No, in many states, you can be executed for murder or have a life imprisonment. So that's not what's happening. So that's hyperbolic, kind of like Trump. And it's not just a figure of speech. It's literally like this. A person goes to prison for 20 years for working with us. Okay, but even 20 years is not a life sentence. So she's still wrong there. But again, she's just trying to be hyperbolic. I'm not joking. This is what a violation of the sanctions regime carries, pursuant to that clause. 1 year ago, Ukraine T were hunting for her. She remains on the hit list. The enemies of Kyiv's regime, Tigran and I, are combatants. Which she is kind of right about that they are combatants. They're combatants in the informational warfare space. And that she recognizes that is actually quite telling. She really is. We are soldiers of our country. When you become a soldier of your country, as any combatant, you understand that you can perish in this war. There are things worse than death. For example, shame. Shame is more scary than death. Okay, so that's the end of her predictions for 2024. Now, as we think about predictions, predictions are a hard thing because you don't know if you're going to be right or wrong. Like, for example, here's Scott Ritter. And this is Scott Ritter talking about how, let's see, Scott Ritter warns, this was 1 day ago, Putin just delivered the final blow to NATO. And Scott Ritter 2 days ago said he reveals that Kyiv troops flee on all fronts as Russia's decisive offensive. But at a certain point, you'd think you've been wrong so often. This is Scott Ritter 2 years ago. Live, Ukraine's last stand with Scott Ritter. Last stand? That was 2 years ago. How long does a last stand last? Now, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. If I'm going to criticize Scott Ritter, I'm going to say, here were my predictions from 2023, the end of the first year of the war. And this is what you would have seen this time 2 years ago. So the next thing that you want to watch, if you're interested, is what my predictions were in 2023. So watch this and tell me if you think that they aged well. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.